Thank you so much, leaders, for joining us on another episode of Doddle.live. And today I've got a very special guest with me, special leader. I lost all his hair also, but that's the case of with most of us. We have been losing our hairs, but don't lose your sleep. Sleep peacefully, take care of your health, and take care of your well-being. Today I've got Sumit with us, a prolific leader. Before we go to the set of topics that we have for him, where we want his insights on, we'll give a formal introduction about him. Sumit is a seasoned technology leader and a fractional CTO or CPO with over 2 decades of experience driving digital transformation, product strategy, and engineering excellence across both B2B as well as B2C platforms. He's currently advising multiple organizations where he partners with the leadership team to build scalable technology roadmaps and high impact product ecosystems. In his previous role as a CTO at Omni, he has led end to end technology strategy and product delivery, enabling robust omni-channel commerce capabilities. His leadership journey spans roles at SCL Technologies, India Property, ST Media, where he has built and scaled engineering teams, modernized the platforms, and delivered high-scale digital products. He's known for aligning technology with business outcomes. He brings in deep expertise in enterprise architecture, product development, and cross-functional team leadership. His approach combines a strategic vision with execution rigor, enabling organizations to innovate, scale, and achieve sustainable growth. Welcome you, Sumit. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you for having me here.
First time I spoke to you, sir, I felt that I have spoken to you last time. But that was the first time that I spoke. If I would have been hunting for jobs, I'm telling you, I would have applied working with you for like 100 times.
I guess that's a feeling that is mutually shared by a lot of people who worked with me. I think, which again I take pride in because I think that's my USP. That's my style of operating. So yeah.
Sir, you have evolved from leading engineering teams to owning outcomes as a CTO, and now you're advising multiple companies. What has changed in your decision making when you moved from building products to being accountable for business success?
A lot changes, right? When you're building products, it's just about delivery, right? Meeting the timelines and getting ensuring that people are available for on go live dates and stuff like that, right? But the moment your role evolves from pure delivery or just an engineering manager to someone in the leadership role, you have to look at everything holistically, right? Your decisions in terms of how they are going to help the business as a whole, right? You are no longer looking at just pushing something live on XYZ date, right? You're looking at what after that, right? How will it benefit the organization? How will it get in the moolah, right? How will it grow the business? And and when you start putting yourself in those shoes, then you kind of look at things left, right, and center, right? You look at revenue models, you look at technology solutions holistically, right? What stack to use, what kind of hiring decisions to make. So you then you're no longer looking at just one parameter, you're looking at multiple parameters.
And do you also think that, sir, all these people with less years of experience should also start nowadays looking at business more than, aligning the product strategy as per that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very important part of growing up, right? And especially in today's day and age, where AI has kind of overtaken everything, right? I mean, in earlier days, it was all about individual skill, right? So you needed to be a good developer, a good coder with certain skills, right? Now, if you see, a lot of those skill capabilities are no longer required because AI is automating a lot of code writing for you, right? So what does a technology guy do then, apart from, just reviewing the code quality of what has been generated by AI, right? So, you need to have those people skills, those conversational skills where you're able to sit with other people, whether it's from the product team, whether it's from the sales, marketing, understand from them how does their world evolve, how does their day-to-day routine affect the business as a whole. So I think, and luckily, the good thing for me was early on in my career when I was at AOL, after spending a good 5 6 years in pure development roles, my last stint, the last part of my stint at AOL was part of a a business management team, right? I was a developer in a business management team. But that gave me first-hand experience of, understanding the business and, looking at using technology to help the business, because very often we technology guys now we get carried away with new technologies, and we want to, like, use that new technology like anywhere and everywhere, right? But we forget the fact that at the end of the day, yes, technology is important, but then technology has to help the business.
Yes.
If it does not do that, then the technology is of no use. So yeah, to your question, yes, absolutely. I think people need to, folks on the technology side need to get more involved with the business for sure.
And now, sir, since you have been working with multiple companies and also advising a lot of startups, you'd be able to see patterns very quickly. So, what are the most common mistakes that you see founders make when it comes to product and technology? And what stage do these mistakes become very expensive?
I think one thing which I have continuously seen in startups, right? I've worked with founders from early stage startups, mid stage startups, established startups. One thing which I've seen is, and it works both ways, right? The founders, right? They tend to get a little carried away in terms of, yes, speed is important, but then at what cost, right?
Mm.
See, the thing is, when you're an early stage startup, you need speed. But beyond a point in time, once your business is maturing, you need to give the free hand to the technology guys to then, recalibrate your platform. And because, see, any product that you build, it's not a one time build. It has to evolve over a period of time, right? And it can't happen just like that, right? So yeah, I think that's important.
They get carried away with speed. And
Yeah. So yeah, to that point, right? I think one thing is for sure that founders, while they want to deliver fast, right?
yeah.
They refuse to recalibrate, right?
Mhm.
Once once they achieve a certain speed, they expect the same speed to carry on forever, right? They refuse to give the technology team the chance to recalibrate, right? And in many cases I've seen that what that does is that it kind of brings a breakdown in the system, right? And then, well, when there is a breakdown, there is a breakdown, then there is nothing you can do, right? Then you have to go back to the drawing board and basically do the same thing, which, had you planned it, you would
Yeah.
have ensured that your systems don't go down, right? So yeah, I think one thing which, while it is important, I empathize with the founders, because they have their neck on the line and they are running the business, right? But there has to be a balance, and I think that is where they kind of miss the bus a little bit, I would say.
But why is it the case, sir? Is it because uh, a lot of these startups are also, VC backed? Some of them are bootstrapped. Is it because the pressure from the investors or something related to that?
So there are uh, I can think of two reasons, right? One, what happens is, and this is particularly prevalent in cases where the founders come from a non-technology background, right?
Right. Mm.
When you have a founder who comes from a technology background, life becomes easier, because then the founder is able to put his foot down, his or her foot down, saying that no, we need to do this and do this now. Unfortunately, in scenarios where the founders don't come from a technology background, they tend to fall under the pressure from the investors. Obviously, the investors follow a certain pattern. They look at growth in a certain. They expect growth in a certain manner, right? And they look at how the organization is growing, and they try to then, given the lack of technical ownership in the founding team, they tend to take the onus on themselves and try to drive that, right? And I think yes, they definitely fall for that trap, right? In some cases what happens is, and in one particular case I've seen that, right? Now what the founders did was that they invested heavily on technology early on. Again, these were founders who came from a non technology background, right? They invested in technology. They invested in a big technology team. They had like a 2 3 cr annual budget just for the technology team. They built a product right at the end of about 2.5 years. Though they had a product, their business was heading in a different direction, right? They were still having to outsource or look for third party tools, right? Now, this is a classic case of, the misalignment of the technology team to the actual business, right?
Right.
The founders put in the money, but then after 2-3 years of all the work that were being put in, they realized that this whole team wasn't working for them. So now, while yes, the ideal course correction would have been to trim down the team and look at recalibrating and reworking things, they did a complete u-turn, right? They said, okay, let's get rid of the entire technology team and let's outsource it. Right now, unfortunately, when you're building products, right, you have to balance. Again, you have to take a hybrid model. You cannot just say, okay, throw the whole team and outsource everything, right? Because let's accept it, if you're building products, you cannot build great products if you're outsourcing your technology team.
Right.
You need to have a balance. You
Yes.
can outsource some part of your technology team, sure, why not, right? But because then the moment you outsource, right, you lose control. So yeah, I think that is where the challenge with founders is that they, in many cases, they don't get right advice at the right time.
Yes. Yes. Right. And many a times they're not also ready to listen to that.
True, very true. Because they tend to feel that they know better, right? Again, I'm not taking anything away from them. I understand. If I put myself in a founder's shoe, I understand and empathize with them, right? Because it is their neck on the line. They might have put in some money in the business, right? And they are answerable to the investors as well, right? But then the right way is the right way, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I think that's and that is what will define the success or failure of a startup.
So also let's talk about a very real dynamics, like founders, as you told, that they want speed, iteration and quick wins, while CTOs often push for scalability, architecture and long term thinking. Do you remember a situation where this conflict kind of showed up, and how did you navigate it?
Okay. So yeah, I think I can think of two such scenarios, right? Pretty early on in my career, again, I'll not name names here, right? I worked with a media house, right? And the founders obviously were from a non-technology background, right? And obviously they were trying to rebuild a product, and they wanted to compete with the behemoths in the industry. Put the onus on me to build quickly, right? And I kind of in my trademark style put my foot down, and I said that, hey, you know what, if you want something, right, I mean, it's that's the classical example, right? If you want a baby, it will take 9 months. You can't
Right.
have
Yes.
delivering one baby in 1 month.
1 month.
So that's not possible. For a baby to come out, it will take certain amount of time.
Right.
And that is where a technology guy, I think, or a technology person, you need to arm yourself with a lot of data. And it helps when the other side, the founder, is a little, what do you say? In Hindi, they say "ठहरे हुए," right? Who's a little responsive to trusting data rather than just gut feel and intuition based assessments, right? And I think that goes a long way. I've seen that, right? As a technology person, for us to be able to justify long term vision, right? We need to have a lot of data, right? And in my case, that's one strategy that I've always employed, and it's always worked for me. Right. In fact, even in my last organization, Omni, now we had like a huge, our monthly AWS bills were about $95,000, right? And we set on this onerous task of, how do we cut down our AWS costs, right?
Yeah.
Now, the easy answer would have been that just shut down all non-critical stuff and scale down your overall architecture, right, servers and everything. But then the thing is, you need to plan these. You can't just say that do a blanket approach in terms of taking these kind of decisions. So what we did was, we tackled the low hanging fruits first. We said, okay, the easy wins, get hold of them, right? and the tougher tasks, architectural changes, plan them out and look at them holistically, see how this aligns with the business overall, right? And just build a roadmap to doing this. And I think, I think to answer your question, get a lot of data, build a roadmap, and gain the confidence of the founders. I think the last thing founders need is you running away with something without they having any information of what is happening and hearing from third parties, right? So it is important to maybe even daily updates or half a day updates, right? In some cases, depending on how finicky the founder is. But yeah, it helps, I think. Giving having data to back you, and then constantly updating the founders and bringing them in sync with what is happening goes a long way in gaining their confidence and calming their or soothing their nerves.
Yes. And sir, as a CTO, saying yes is very easy, but saying no at the right time becomes very critical.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you remember an instance where you had to push back on a founder's vision or urgency, and what happened next?
Oh yeah. So there was this one time where one of the founders, we were debating on whether we should use a out of the box CMS like a WordPress, Drupal, or Joomla, or we should build our custom CMS, right? And the product team was hell bent upon using a out of the box solution because they said it'll be faster and we'll be out in the market sooner rather than later. And while there was merit to that discussion, I looked at where we were as a business and what we wanted to achieve, and I put my foot down with the founders and I said that, hey, you want me to build a 3-year 5-year vision for you, right? You want me to build a product which takes you into uh, see, typically, a product, a lifespan of a product is about 3 to 5 years, right? Beyond that, technology changes. You will have to, architectural changes. Things evolve, and you have to rebuild everything from scratch, right? So, if you're building something, you need to ensure that it lasts you for at least that much of time, right?
Right.
And with out of the box solutions, the challenge is that you don't have too much of control. You're at the mercy of the service provider, right? Like WordPress, or depending on what features WordPress offers, you can do that, right? You are left with very limited customization choices.
Yeah.
When you're building your own CMS, you're the boss. You decide how you want to build it, right? You want to add a feature, you choose which libraries you want, right? And I think the result of that was the product that we worked on, right? Even today is being used as is, right? It's been more than 10 years, right? And I think that speaks volumes, and that product is working at scale, right? Close to about 20-30 million users using that product as we speak today. So yeah, I mean, putting your foot down as a technology person is absolutely important, right? When to put down is equally important, because you need to know what battles to fight.
And also, sir, you have built from a scratch and also a scaled platform. So you have been on both the sides. And so what's one decision that has worked, perfectly in early stages, but becomes a liability at a scale? And how did you course correct?
See, I think in early stages, it is easy to go for out of the box solutions. Now, the challenge with that is the moment your business grows and you want to make changes quickly and move forward, right? That is where you will find yourself stuck, because at the right time, you don't have the resources to scale up the product, right? Because you're using a third party tool, right? And unless the vendor is so aligned with you that he or she is willing to make changes at your whims and fancies, you will find yourself always stuck, right? And the way we handled that was, we built a hybrid strategy, right?
Hmm.
While we were using a third party tool, I also built a small in house team. I ensured that while we were using the third party tool, we were also building small feature sets in house, so that, when the time came, and if we had to decide to, at the flip of a switch, move from a third party tool to a in house solution, we should be able to do it seamlessly. See, there is nothing called as a seamless changeover, right? You will always run into certain real life scenarios, unexpected real life scenarios. You
Yes.
have to tackle them as they happen, right? But being prepared for those goes a long way in ensuring that it is a lot less painful than it would have been if you didn't have those resources in place.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, sir. And you have also led, cross-functional teams across product engineering and user experience. Where do you feel that organizations typically fail in alignment? And how do you ensure that everybody is solving the same problem?
Where organizations fail is lack of communication. And I think as a and as a leader who's managed different types of teams, tech being one vertical, product being another, design being another, that has been my biggest endeavor, right, to ensure there is seamless communication between the people, right? And each of these teams and individuals are solely focused on the larger business objectives, right? Because more often than not understanding why you are doing certain things leaves each of these teams in their own silos, right? Like product does not understand technology, does not need to understand technology. They need to be closer to business, though that thing is also changing. That paradigm is changing today, right? Where product managers are needed or expected to know technology a lot more today than they were, say, 5 7 years ago, right? So it's important that product managers understand why we are doing what we are doing, why technology is, like, I'll give you an example, right? Uh, Product manager puts out a requirement doc in terms of what he wants, she wants, and visions in terms of a feature, right? Now that goes to the tech team. Now the tech team will review it, will say, okay, this will require x amount of time, and this is the earliest we can start, right? Now, and the time comes, the product team starts, the dev team starts working on it, right? Now what typically happens is, the moment you start working on it, the expectation is it will start and finish in x amount of time, as per as per promised, right? Now in case of some live issues coming in, or some other higher priority, let's say demonetization happened, right? Overnight everything changed, right? All the product guys and the tech guys had to stop doing everything that they were doing, and they had to rebuild everything overnight, right? Those kind of scenarios happen, right? Now as long as your teams are not aligned, right, this will lead to chaos, right? You need to be, as long as you are clear, and your teams, whether it is the tech, product, design teams, very clear in terms of what the business objective is, right? They will all work towards it. So the key, if you ask me, is to ensure the seamless communication amongst all these people, right? And understanding of what the business objectives are that we are striving towards.
With all these communication tools around, sir, I think the problem of communication is still remains.
It still remains, absolutely. I mean, communication, we can I mean, there are AI tools, there are so many other third party tools available, right? But then the impact that personal touch has in terms of communication,
Yeah.
these tools unfortunately still are nowhere close to bringing in that kind of impact.
Now, sir, let's talk a bit about AI, because that's also getting a lot of traction these days. With
Sure.
AI becoming central to product strategy these days, how should founders and CTOs think differently about building AI-led products versus traditional products?
So what has happened is, in traditional products, right? Typically, how the founders operated was, technology was more of an afterthought, right? First thing was to get the business up and running, right? To establish your sales channels, your marketing funnels, that your operations teams.
Yeah.
First thing was to get all those in place, and then look at technology as an afterthought, right? Now, the as much as AI has become a buzzword, the challenge for AI to be effective for you as an organization is to have lot of data, lot of structured data, right? And unfortunately, in the old scheme of things, why many of the older companies are struggling today to move to AI is because they have a lot of enterprise systems which are broken. And when I say broken, their data sets are broken, right? They have part data. The operations team is running up a data set which is different from the manufacturing team versus the sales and the marketing teams, right? And for the system, for an AI system to take all these data sets, recalibrate it, and kind of figure out that, okay, this is structured differently, but these are the same data sets, but this is how they get linked up. You need to build those models, you need to test them, you need to, figure that out, right? It takes time. So the new age startups, they can do a lot better, and they are doing a lot better by ensuring that they are and they are their data sets are in place right from day one, and their data sets are hooked up to a lot of the new age AI technologies that are in place.
Now, at the end, sir, of this podcast, we have a rapid fire round with you, and
Sure.
we want you to answer it in one line, so don't extend it. So the
Sure.
first one is about speed versus scalability. Speed or scalability, what wins in an early stage startup?
Early stage speed, mid
Got it.
stage scalability.
Now, founder instinct versus data-driven decision. Which one do you
Data
trust?
driven decision always.
I knew that. Sir, as a CTO, buy versus build.
I would say hybrid.
Got it. And one thing that founders should stop doing when working with tech teams.
Give them a lot more credit, which stop. Yeah, I think, yeah, give them a lot more credit is what I would say.
And stop being a bully.
Stop being a bully.
I
No, I
completely.
mean, I've worked with many founders who are not bullies. One of my most cherished startup that I worked for, I really appreciate the gentleman's willingness to give me that leeway, right, in terms of building the product that the way I built it, right. I ensured that there was data driven decision making. I ensured that, when I had to put my foot down, he never stopped me from that because I had a lot of data to back my theories, right. So yeah, I think it's also important. Maybe it's a little bit of luck factor where you get the right person, the right founder to work with. And yeah, I think that also helps. But yeah, to your point, yeah, it helps if, the founders are not bullies.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on this podcast and sharing your insights. Extremely
Thank you,
grateful.
Rishi. Really appreciate it.
And at last, would you like to tell something to the other leaders in the community, especially around, sir, maintaining a good personal life? Because, many times the leaders are lonely. Any advice for them?
Any advice for the leaders? No,
Yeah.
I think in my experience, yes, leadership is very lonely. I think the best you can do is spread the goodwill around, and I think that's one thing which I have learned. Right, helping your juniors to become better leaders goes a long way in help, obviously bringing some differentiation in their lives, and B, gives you a lot of feel good factor, right. And lot to kind of go back to and think about, right. I always talk to myself in terms of what I did well, not did well, right. So yeah, I think do that's very therapeutic and very helpful.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and look forward to
Yep.
hosting you.
All
Thanks.
right, take care.